Hi friends, Miki here with your singing tip of the week. Today I wanted to do a slightly different type of video. This is a story time video and it's a reaction to something that I saw on Facebook. It's a type of video that I've seen a lot and I'm sure you've seen it too. It's the isolated vocal tracks of various pop singers. And the ones that were included in this video were Beyonce and Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Justin Bieber. There might have been a few others as well. And generally speaking, there's a few different types of these isolated vocal track videos. One is a positive, where you'll hear like Freddie Mercury's isolated vocal tracks on Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's people being like, oh my God, he was so amazing. Listen how great he was. His vocals sound perfect even without the other tracks in there. And those I'm totally fine with. And then there's also like another type of video where, like, one of my friends sent me David Lee Roth, his vocals isolated out of a song, and that wasn't really like poking fun at him. It was just funny because he's such a character, and so when you take his vocals out of context, it sounds really funny without the other instruments. And so that I don't really mind either, but this particular video was of the third kind, which is basically saying, oh my God, listen to the way these singers sound without auto-tune, and when they're not in the studio with all of these recording tricks to make them sound good, and they're actually really horrible in real life. I think we all are guilty to some extent of tearing down celebrities to make ourselves feel better. I know that I've done this in the past, in particular with Jessica Simpson. I think I've always been a little bit jealous of her because she was signed at the same time as me and she did really well on Columbia. And, you know, I kind of like reveled in little stupid things where I could tear her down in the past, where like, oh, she gained a lot of weight when she was pregnant, haha, now she's fat, ha ha ha, you know? And meanwhile, she's like a billionaire and like has a thriving career. And there was a part of me that was always like a little bit jealous of that. And so, you know, personally for me, it's one of my resolutions in 2019 not to do that anymore and not to tear down people out of jealousy or to compare myself to them. But, you know, I see it a lot where people take pleasure sitting behind a computer screen and saying negative things about famous people. And I've certainly been guilty of it myself. And I just want to encourage everybody not to do that. And I want to talk about some of the reasons why it's unfair to listen to an isolated vocal track and to judge it on its own. So number one is that a lot of the singers that are in these videos are entertainers, and so they're not just singers. And what I mean by that is they're doing a lot of physical stuff in their performances. They're also dancing. They might be doing flips or, you know, being carried around or doing these like complicated dance moves. And it's very difficult to be so physical and sing in tune and without sounding out of breath and without your voice wavering, especially if you're like jumping up and down or moving really aerobically. You have to have a lot of core stability in order for your voice not to waver. And so, you know, in the past, a lot of times these entertainers would use backing tracks, and then that kind of became a thing where people would get called out for using backing tracks, and so they started to sing more live again. But then you get situations where they're running around and they're out of breath. And I think we've all heard the urban legend about Beyonce's dad making her run on a treadmill while she was training to sing, because he wanted her to be able to do all of these crazy dance moves and still sound amazing. And I don't know if that's actually true, but it kind of makes sense. So I think we need to be a little bit forgiving with that type of performer where they're doing these really physical things. Because, you know, if you don't think it's hard to sound good singing while doing something physical, try bending over and singing into your belly button and see how that sounds. And then the second thing that we have to take into account is just the environment that these singers are singing in. So a lot of times they're performing outside or, you know, in these huge arenas where they're singing to hundreds, if not thousands of people. And you get issues like delay and sound bouncing off the walls and echoing and reverberating. And the amount of people in the room can really affect the sound because bodies absorb sound. So all of these are kind of like variables, and you see a lot of times when singers do a show in a big concert hall and they have like 3 nights booked there, they'll sound okay the first night, but they'll sound amazing the third night because by that time they've had a chance to adjust to the various qualities of that room. And there are so many people that are involved in making a concert sound good. And you have the person that's running the soundboard, you have sound techs, you may or may not have monitors on the stage, which are those speakers that actually face the performer and give the performer a different mix of sound than you'll be hearing in the audience, because those are usually 2 completely different things. Some places don't even have monitors. And then when you get to the higher echelons, you'll see a lot of performers with in-ear monitors so that they can have their own personalized mix of what's going on stage. So it becomes very complicated. It sounds very different when you're singing a song in your bedroom with an acoustic guitar and you can hear everything really clearly than when you're on a stage with an electric guitar wailing away and somebody hitting a full drum kit at top volume. And that can cause distortions in the sound that wouldn't be present otherwise. So I think it's really unfair to judge somebody on a single performance. People have off days for all sorts of reasons. There might have been technical issues. They might have just not been feeling well. And I think we need to hold performers to the same standards that we hold ourselves to. They're human beings. Even though they are professionals, we have to remember that, first of all, there's a reason why they're at the top of their game and they're getting paid top dollar. There has to have been some reason why they were able to ascend to great heights. And a lot of that is talent. It's not just winning the lottery. And so we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of the comments that I was seeing on this video that really upset me were very negative and trolly. Like somebody said about Katy Perry, she sounds like a bag of cats being drowned. Things that were just like very, very nasty. I think you have to look at the entire context of her career, and she clearly can sing. She has an amazing voice, and if you listen to more than one example of her singing live, you can hear that clearly. She might have had an off day for whatever reason, but that's not a reason to think that somebody sucks and they're not a good singer. So I wanted to include, to make this a little bit more personal, an example of a situation that happened to me recently. I performed at Rockwood Music Hall in New York City, and the rooms there are very small. So you get a tiny, tiny little stage. And I think I was performing on a stage that was approximately the size of this rug behind me. And I had a full rock band. That means that I was playing with drummer, Tommy DeVito. I was playing with Russ Alderson on bass. My producer engineer, Kaz, was playing keyboards. And my songwriting partner, AR, was playing guitar. Everything was top volume. We were all mic'd up. And because of the acoustics in the room, when we were performing a certain song, Cut Me, when we got to the chorus, it sounded to me as if we were playing in a key that was a full whole step down from the key that we actually were in. So I was singing a full whole step down, and so I sound very, very flat when we get to the chorus. And I'm gonna play a little bit of that for you so you can hear how terrible it sounded. And I do not have perfect pitch, so I need to hear an instrument to give me a relative pitch in order for me to know what key I'm singing in. So because of the distortion in the room and how loud everything was and all the reverberation that was happening, I couldn't get an accurate relative pitch. So I'm gonna play you a little bit of that so you can be as horrified as I was when I heard the recording back. Here we go. Yikes, right? So now I'm gonna play you the track off of my record, No Resolution, so you can hear what it was supposed to sound like. And keep in mind, when we recorded this in the studio, we did not use any auto-tune on my voice. so you know that I actually can hear and sing in tune. So that's what it's supposed to sound like. And, you know, had this happened to me 10 years ago, I would have been really, really upset and I would have beat myself up about it and it would have been very traumatic to me. But I've played thousands of performances at this point and I know that things can go wrong and, you know, one day it's one thing and the next day it's another thing, and the rest of the performance was great. It was just that one song was so loud with the electric guitars and the drums and everything else that I couldn't accurately ascertain the pitch. So the reason that I'm sharing this with you and that I'm not like super embarrassed to share it with you is that I think it's important for us all to be honest, and sometimes we're gonna make a mistake. It's just part of being human and part of being a performer. And I want you to know, if you're first starting out, that if you mess up, be kind to yourself, be forgiving. It's all part of the learning process. It doesn't mean that you can't sing. It doesn't mean that you're tone deaf. It doesn't mean that you're gonna sing that song flat or your voice is gonna crack in the same place every single time. And we should also extend that same courtesy to celebrities because they're people too, and it's easy to forget that. So that's the point of this video. It's kind of a rant. I saw that video calling out people and saying such negative, nasty things about them, and it touched a chord in me because I know that I've been guilty of tearing people down like that in the past, and I think in 2019 it would be nice if we were all a little kinder to ourselves and to everyone else. And that's not to say that you can't have an opinion and you can't think that somebody's a great singer and somebody's a less good singer. That's totally fine, but don't judge somebody on a single performance because things go wrong all the time and it doesn't mean that they suck just because they didn't nail this one performance. So hopefully you relate to this in some way. I would love to hear your experiences and what you think of this issue. I guess this is a little bit controversial. If you've had an experience where you've messed up and you feel like you've been unfairly judged, or you've been really hard on yourself, or you've unfairly judged somebody else, or if you completely disagree with me and you think these pop singers are overrated and we should be judging them as harshly as we are, I would love to hear your thoughts. So drop me a line in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, hit me up on social media. And I will see you here next week for another tip of the week. Until then, happy singing.